Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're doing all well. How's it going today? Alrighty, so welcome. A lot of people probably already know this, but this is Secret of Mana for the Super Nintendo, considering that we are playing for the SNES Super Stars. I guess the Super Nintendo is a given. And, well, it's gonna be interesting. Oh yeah, good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. Welcome back to Secret of Mana. After this Star Fox run, I actually have to admit I've never seen Star Fox before, so that was quite interesting, so thank you very much for that run. And hello everybody, I hope you're doing well. We got controllers, yes. Right now I will only need one for a second. Also, as a heads up, I will be playing this on the SNES Mini, because start and select buttons are incredibly important, and on my second controller the start and select buttons are a little bit worn out at this point. So this is the easier way to do this. So yeah, good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. Welcome back everybody. I hope you're doing well. So, this is Secret of Mana, a Super Nintendo action RPG from Squaresoft, and pretty much everybody who has ever played this game really loves it. There's a lot of nostalgia for it, and honestly it's pretty much my favorite game. Even I can admit that it may not have aged as well as other games, but it's still pretty neat. And well, I would say we're going to be starting this very soon. As a note, in theory what you should do in this game is you should only choose one letter character names, that way around, in order to save as much time from the text boxes, because each character drawn on screen just costs you a little bit of time. So as short of a name as possible will save you a little bit of time over the course of the run. But this is a marathon run and I think we are a little bit ahead of schedule, so well, I have time to explain this, and actually I would say let's just get this going, shall we? 2 players, 3 controller. We actually already did that in 2014, I believe. Me and Stinger PA at Awesome Games Done Quick, if you'd like to see that. Was actually working out surprisingly well. It might not be the way you expect it to be, but who knows. Alright, let's just get this going in 3, 2, 1, let's run. Alrighty, we will not need a second controller. So Secret of Mana's one of the main features is that you could play this with up to 3 players if you had a multi-tap in the Super Nintendo era. And even if you only had 2 players, this was quite a step up from so many other games where you would play one player first and then the other player next, and then you go on and play the next player, etc. Also, I forgot to do a thing, so you could actually see the camera properly. Be right back. Alrighty, I'm back, sorry. I forgot to turn on the light. I don't usually use this light because it's a little bit... well... it's too bright for my taste usually, for in front of here, but it's more easy to see what I'm doing with the controllers. So, we only have one character at the very beginning of this game, and... well, we are about to start into the world of Secret of Mana. The story is kind of straightforward, and I'm advancing the text boxes by pressing all the 4 phrase prompt buttons X, Y, A and B, as well as L and R in order to, well, try to get through the text boxes as quick as possible. And the story is kind of straightforward. We are playing in a place where we shouldn't be playing around, we fall down a waterfall, and don't worry, fall damage is not a thing in this universe. We find a sword, and then we need to find our way back home. But things go all the way kind of wrong. But all of a sudden, we are in the middle of an adventure, and here we go. So, fun fact, if you actually use a walkthrough wall cheat in order to clip out of bounds without picking up the sword here, the game is really messed up. I recommend you try it out just for fun. It's kinda weird. Either way, the first thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and pick up the sword in order to be able to whack our way through the bushes on the right side. For anybody who may not know this game, there is 2 kinds of level ups in this game. One is your regular character level up, Like, you just gain more HP, you gain more strength, more agility, more intelligence, and all these kinds of good things. And the other part is where you have your weapon level ups. Depending on which weapon you use, the theory is that the more you use that weapon, the stronger it gets. The way I'm going to be playing this is I'm going to be mainly looking for weapon level ups rather than anything else. So what this means is I will want to start gaining experience for specifically leveling up the sword from level 0 to level 1. For that I will need to defeat a total of 11 enemies, and I would like to have that as close as possible after the next boss. So here are some rabbits, you have 20 HP. Also at the bottom you have a stamina bar. I'll wait until I have full stamina again, when I get a low damage roll with 14 damage instead of 18. Otherwise, I only have to wait until 56% to guarantee 2 damage on the rabbits there. So that is 3... Oops. By the way, in this game here, there can only be a maximum of 3 enemies on the screen at any given point. So this did not work out as planned, but oh well, we are not terribly in danger right now. If you die in this section here, you actually get revived back at the sword's place, so you literally cannot game over right now. Oh, also that was a critical hit. They are very, very uncommon, especially in the early stages of the game, and sometimes you get lucky and get 2. So that was actually pretty quick. Alrighty. I completely lost count because I was talking about things, and we are back in the village. The short version is, well, we picked up the Sword of Mana that was protecting the village. I'm not sure how, but suddenly monsters appeared everywhere, and the people are kind of blaming me, or well, our player character SSS. And, well, people are of course upset, and suddenly a hole will open below us where we land at the feet of the Mantis Ant. So the Mantis Ant is actually surprisingly technical and difficult to defeat without losing too much time. Although there is about 3 different strategies. You can stand in the top left corner, forcing the Mantis Ant to continuously jump and never do anything else. Unfortunately that is kind of slow. Another strategy is, after every time you hit the Mantis Ant, you stand on the left or the right of him, in order to bait out a swing attack of him. And the third method, the fastest one, is just standing in front of him and relatively precisely slash at him just before he can swing at you. So the trick about this is that you do not want to stand too far away, otherwise he will use ranged attacks like that acid breath. And while he uses those ranged attacks, he is completely invulnerable. Also, if we get too many low damage rolls, as in 14, we will have to do 10 attacks rather than just the usual 9. In this case I think that was 414, so that was 1 more attack than usually necessary. Alrighty. Fun fact also, the Elliot in the bottom right there is actually part of the Mantis Ant boss fight. So if you play a randomizer where the boss fights are in random locations, Elliot will always be part of the Mantis Ant fight. It's kind of funny. Alrighty, so we get introduced to Gemma, who is one of the Gemma Knights, and he tells us to go to Luca at the Water Palace. That will introduce us to the concept of stealing the mana seeds in order to power up our sword, in order to defeat the evil. That's pretty much all there is to it. We also are told that we should visit the Elder real quick, and that is also where we learn that, well, people are really unhappy about our actions. We are also kind of an outcast, a bit of an orphan to say the least, where, well, we were kind of delivered here, and the Elder raised us as his own child, but the villagers are just too mean and want us to go away, even though we just defeated that Mantis Ant and could probably protect the village from anything that was becoming. Well, instead we are going to go on an adventure. That is okay. So, little trick, if you hold down the B button, which by the way is, for some weird reason, the accept button in Secret of Mana rather than the A button like it is in most games. If you hold down the B button, you will automatically select the first option that is available in any dialogue, if that's something you desire. So also, that was about a 50% chance that I would be able to run past that flower there I just ran past. if it were to hit me, that's about half the time, because when you run in this game, the hitboxes are really strange. Let's put it that way. A flower that is just standing there has a gigantic radius of where it will just trap you, as in it has a trap hitbox, where if you touch it, you will take damage, or if you have too much defense, you will just make a defensive maneuver and avoid the damage. You get the idea. Either way, when you run, your hitbox oscillates between being gigantic, as in about 3 times the size of what it normally is, or tiny, which is about half the size of what it normally is. And so it was pretty much pure chance on whether I was able to run past this flower or not. And in this case it worked out just fine. Alrighty, so here we are introduced to Luca, which, by the way, I never really realized that she has red eyes when I was a kid. I only saw that at some point when I was speedrunning this game for like a few months already. And that's when I realized, wait a second, she has really red eyes, that's kinda creepy. She is supposed to be 200 years old. Maybe she's a vampire, I don't know. Either way, the idea is that we need to select the first option, then the first option again, and the first option again, and then the second option. If you choose the quote-unquote run option, Luca will actually remember all the things she has not yet said or told you, and list the entire dialogue, so you lose like 30 seconds if you choose the first option a 4th time rather than the second one. Also in this game here, if you press start, select L and R at the same time, we may do a soft reset via controller, which is actually quite useful, because I'm playing in an SNES Mini and a regular reset would be a bit awkward. Either way, we also save very briefly here, not just for marathon saves yet, but this is actually a little bit faster. I press start, select L and R, reload the save file, and we just skipped about 2 text box worth of dialogue, as well as we don't have to walk all the way outside, so this is very slightly fast. Oops. Also, I just got a new weapon. This is the spear. So one of my main or favorite things in this game is that you can basically choose the weapon you want to play with. In this case, we just acquired the spear. My goal with the spear is now to level it up to level 1, kinda like I did with the sword, so I need to defeat another 11 enemies, so that's 2. And this is gonna be 3. And hopefully the mushroom is not hidden. Oh, there it is. So the mushroom can be hidden and it can be pretty awkward to defeat it. 4, 5, 6. Wait a little bit until this guy respawns. So as mentioned before, any given screen can only have a maximum of 3 enemies at any given point. However, that screen just before this one here is actually special because there's always one entity loaded in the entire area, which means there can only be a maximum of 2 enemies. So I kind of have to play around that if I want to actually spawn or despawn certain enemies. And also spawn manipulation is kind of a big deal. Alrighty, we come here to our first glitch. Oh, by the way, one thing that some people might be wondering, why we did not get caught by the goblins. You only get caught by the goblins if you talk to the guards in front of the water palace first, until they leave, basically. That's the short version. So, here what we are going to do is we're going to buy 2 items, candy and a chocolate. So the chocolate is in the second item slot in our inventory, so we go into our regular inventory, put the cursor onto the chocolate, and then we sell both items. Then we go into the buying menu right afterwards, and right out of it again, and then we go into the sell menu again, and the game gets really confused about what just happened, and lets us select item slots that are completely empty, and selling literally nothing is worth about, well, 30,000 gold. And that's all the money we need for the entire rest of the game. If you are a beginner runner of this game, I recommend you get a bit more money than this in order to be able to afford some more armor upgrades, but generally speaking, we don't really need this. So here we are. Alrighty, with this we have bought some basic supplies. The maximum amount of a consumable item you can have in your inventory or you can buy is 4. However, I will soon have a method of multiplying my items in my inventory from 2 up to 8. And, well, That is 4 more items than I can normally carry, which is convenient. Plus, it's also a lot faster than just buying the maximum amount anyways. So I need 4 more enemy kills in order to level up the spear to level 1. Oh, that was a low damage roll, that's okay. I tried to hit this skull switch there. So whenever you're close to an enemy, even if they are dead since a while, but as long as they have not fully despawned, they will still be in your vicinity. And if you're close to an enemy, in this game here, the game considers you to be engaged in combat. When you're engaged in combat, you have a 50% chance to either get a swing or a stab attack. In this case, oh wow, that was a high damage roll there. In this case, I would have preferred a swing attack, so I would be able to hit the switch at the same time as I hit the goblins earlier. But unfortunately, that did not quite happen. Alrighty, weapon skill up, spear reaches level 1, that's exactly what we need in order to progress soon. So, all of these weapon levelings actually did not affect anything yet. The first time I will be using a weapon level is actually on the next boss, with the sword being at level 1. I can actually charge it up to level 1. So the thing is, when you level up a weapon, it does not inherently gain more attack power in any capacity. What you need to do is you need to actually hold down the attack button and then you charge your attack. After you charge attack for a short while and the bar fills up completely, you will be able to unleash a charge attack. Level 1 charge attack, level 2 charge attack, whatever you may have leveled up your weapon for. And here we have Watts. Watts allows us to upgrade a sword. It is actually required by the story to upgrade the sword. Basically, introduction to how this works. And now the sword can actually be leveled up to level 2. Before, the maximum level was actually level 1 for the sword. Alright. Also in the Dwarven Village we're going to get our first set of equipment upgrades. And here we are going to get 2 power wrists. We're going to get 7 spiky suits. 2 to equip and 4 to throw away. Actually 5 to throw away. Also I lost Quantum Harmony, but I probably should not be talking during this. A helmet and a rabbit cap. So we bought equipment for both the boy and the sprite. That comes up a little bit later. And here I'm going to go ahead and stand in this corner here, equip stuff and then throw it away. Equip, throw it away, 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 equip. And that's kind of all there is to it. Then I also equipped the sword and we're going to go. Actually, just to demonstrate this real quick, what I just did is I multiplied the items in my inventory. In the top right you can see the item amount there is. Also I wanted to heal. So you see a 0. That is not normally possible for an item to be both in your inventory, but you have 0 quantity of it. So if you use one of these items, it will then subsequently roll over to 7 items, which is technically the maximum you can have in your inventory. So basically I just multiplied the items in my inventory, standing in that corner, and throwing away equipment items that I had equipped. So what the game tries to do is it tries to unequip that equipment item and then delete it, but for whatever reason it refers to RAM address to wherever you're standing on screen horizontally. And so standing basically against that wall on the left there as I entered the screen just happens to line me up so I can multiply the items in my inventory. I'm not sure why that happens, that's just what happens. Alrighty, so we have now watched the theater cutscene with the sprite and the elder just kind of, well, pretending to be something that they are not, but at the same time we would have enough money pretty much to pay off the entire debt, but that's kind of besides the point, I guess. Either way, we're going to get here to the second boss. This is Tropicalo, or also as I like to call him, the fruit salad. And what he does is he spits out pumpkins whenever he emerges, and after every time he emerges and then, well, emerges again, after I hit him, he will just go back down on the ground. Unless, for whatever reason, if I have relatively precise timing to hit him as soon as he unburrows, and he will just stay above ground. So at this point I have gotten quite a number of low damage rolls. So 35 damage is a low damage roll, which means I actually need to get 0 low damage rolls in this fight in order for it to be 1 cycle quicker. But that's not really anything I control, so I actually just speed up this cycle here in order to be able to attack him right here a little bit quicker. Oh. I guess I got so many low damage rolls that this was not enough damage to defeat him right there. Oh well, this is fine. Here we go. Alrighty. So after you defeat any boss, you get these orbs. In this case we are going to get a spear orb in order to level up our spear to level 2 at the blacksmith. But we actually don't need to do that, because this is 2-player, No, backwards. This is 1-player, 2-controller. And the main reason why the 2-controller category is pretty much the most popular one in Secret of Mana is because there's various tricks that, while you can do them with 1 controller, they are just a lot more awkward to execute. And one of these tricks is the weapon overcharge glitch. I will explain that once I get to the next boss. But the short version is I need to have a weapon at level 1 and a weapon at level 2. Also Sprite gets the shortest possible name, and I also don't want to spend too much time in the name select menu. Further, I'm gonna equip the spear on the Sprite, because that's gonna be a lot more easy to navigate if he has a close melee weapon. Alrighty, we also get bow and arrows, which we unfortunately will never use. So here we go. So we're going to go over to Watts and get another set of weapons. So the Sprite inherently comes with the boomerang equipped. And here we get the axe. The axe is one of the main reasons why normally in casual playthrough you cannot progress past this point, or past any other point aside from here, if you don't have the axe yet. We actually need the axe in order to get past certain points later in the game, but not actually here, because we're going to, well, take an alternative route through the forest, let's put it that way. Alrighty, here, I'm also going to equip the Sprite with his equipment that I bought earlier, so he has a bunch of defense. Also, I'm going to set the controller to be upside down. So the reason why I do this is because this is just how I learn how to play this game with 2 controllers. This allows me a good amount of freedom on pushing all the buttons and both the D-pads at the same time. So, also, now I have to start leveling up the sword towards level 2. For this I will need 12.5 kills total. A half kill is when either the Sprite kills an enemy, or if the enemy is too low level. For example, this flower coming up just now is basically the Sprite is too high. Oops, wrong button. The Sprite is getting the last hit, so we only get half a kill. So we have 1.5 kills so far, plus the kill from Tropicalos, so that's 2.5 so far. Which means I need a total of 10 more enemy kills in order to level up the sword from level 1 to level 2. And that is what I'm aiming for before the next boss. If I don't get it, the next boss is going to be really slow and awkward. Alrighty. What we're going to do next is I will be running over to the left here. And this is normally the back entrance. So what you're supposed to have is you're supposed to have the whip in order to be able to cross this gap over there. But with, let's put it this way, some Secret of Mana shenanigans, you can actually just straight up walk through walls, or jump through walls for that matter. And then you tell the AI to walk through walls after hitting the rope wall here repeatedly too. It's a little bit weird, that's just how it works, I guess. But yeah. So, anybody who may know the game, we have just skipped getting the lady into our party. Which means she is going to have, well, some more tea time with the werewolves, and we're not gonna really get her anytime soon. And for anybody who does not know the game, well, there's supposed to be 3 characters at this stage. But we're only going to get, well, 2. For a while. So, in Secret of Mana, one of the biggest complaints you tend to hear is that the AI-controlled characters get stuck everywhere. And it's kind of true, they do get stuck everywhere. So, one of the big things about mastering Secret of Mana is learning how to control your AI control characters so they don't get stuck everywhere. And that is actually kind of a big deal. So here, that is 5 more enemy kills that I will want to have in order to defeat or level up the sword. So I need 5 more in order to get to the next level. And here we have 2 werewolves. Sometimes you can get past them really fast, other times they are just really mean. Alright, this was okay. Could have gone significantly faster, but I'm not complaining. We didn't really get locked down for any time. So next up, you may also see the text box here is a little bit messed up because one of the names of the characters, specifically of the lady, is really long. So basically because we did not name the lady, her name is go. I did not count, but that sounds about right. This 12 times go, which means 24 characters. And if you remember at the beginning, I told everybody that in order to have the quickest possible text boxes, you have to have as short as possible name. But because, unfortunately, we have a super long character name, we're actually going to lose about a minute. But this is still worth it, because, well, not having a third character makes pathing through the tight areas and quarters so much easier because your screen does not get locked up nearly as much. So, here we get to the Spiky Tiger. And let me put it this way, this is a boss that is a nightmare for any casual player playing this game for the first time or actually even for the 5th time. This boss is really monstrous if you don't know what you're doing. And fortunately, we do have some certain techniques in order to take him on. So first of all, I need to run away. Oh, that was the wrong controller, this is okay. So, I'm going to charge up the sword to level 2 and then switch out with the second controller to the other thing. And this allows me to overcharge my weapon. And what this means is that I just defeated Spiky Tiger with 1 hit. So Spiky Tiger has like 550 HP. But what I did is essentially I put a level 2 charge attack from the sword onto the spear. The game is really confused as to, you already have charged up your weapon to the full bar, so I should give you another level up, right? Because you're not at level 1 yet, you're at level 2, so it gives you to level 3, then level 4, level 5, etc. So the short version is, I just overcharged the charge attack to about level 60 or 70 in order to be able to one-shot the Spiky Tiger. And this is definitely one of the easiest methods of dealing with this guy. Also here I'm using 2 controllers to be able to run through this a little bit quicker. So the short version is, the game has no idea what to do with a level 2 charge attack on a level 1 weapon and freaks out. That's it. And this is pretty much the overcharge glitch in a nutshell. You can also do this overcharge glitch with an AI controlled character. So you can effectively tell them in their AI menu to charge up their weapon to level 2. And then you tell them to charge up their weapon to level 1 after they reach level 2. And then their AI freaks out again and, well, stuff happens basically. So yeah, this is going to be how this is going to run. When you play Secret of Mana casually, you will very quickly realize that magic is incredibly powerful and even overpowered to an extent, really. But because we are playing with 2 controllers, we can properly control the overcharge glitch. And that is kind of one of the biggest differences between a 1 controller run and 2 controller run. While you can still do the overcharge glitch on a 1 controller run, because it's an AI controlled character holding the charge, it's a lot more awkward to play around with. So there's that. Further, another thing is, you may see me sometimes opening up the menu, before unleashing the charge attack, which is not gonna be here. I should still be fine here. But what I can also do on top of that is I can retain a charge attack after unleashing it. And this is going to be really handy. So this was Tadpole, basically a mini-boss. He's not terribly difficult in the first place, but being able to deal 600 damage in one swing means you actually skip the second phase of the encounter, where he would transform into a little fish lizard thing that has 777 HP and heals itself 3 times. Basically we skip all that thanks to dealing just way too much damage. Also in these cases here, I just used a magic rope before walking into a cutscene trigger. So whenever you use the magic rope, it brings you back to the entrance of an area in the cave. In this case, I used it just before talking to Undine, and this means I got teleported to the entrance. But because I used the sprite character, in order to walk or run into the cutscene trigger with Undine anyways, the cutscene just plays at the entrance of the cave. It is a little bit weird how it works. Also, I'm going to take a little safety measure and defeat this guy here. The sprite needs to reach level 1 sorted level at a certain point, and this pretty much guarantees that I will get it in time. So there's that. Also, by the way, don't worry about canon traveling, that is perfectly normal. Probably one of the most unfortunate things they left out in the remake, where they just go black screen and you're there, rather than actually showing the full canon travel. So, concerning Seeker of Evermore and Seeker of Mana, Seeker of Evermore actually is kind of modeled after Seeker of Mana. So Seeker of Mana came before Seeker of Evermore, for that matter, and Seeker of Evermore was developed by Square of America. So it actually did never get a Japanese release, if I'm not mistaken, which is one of the few times something was developed outside of Japan in these instances. And it looks so much like Seeker of Mana in terms of menu and layout, etc. However, it has absolutely nothing to do on a mechanical level with Seeker of Mana. It's completely separate engines and separate game mechanics. We tried to find things that cross over from one game into the other, but we could never find anything of that sort. So yeah. Here we go. So you need to use Undine in order to open up certain passages, like the entrance to the Earth Temple here. So now that we are in the Earth Temple, we can also, well, continue on with the story here. There is technically a way to do the entirety of the early game completely out of order if you want to do so. However, there's not really any benefit for doing that, because unless you advance certain, well, plot triggers and cutscenes to a specific value, you will not be able to continue and just softlog eventually. So makes it actually pretty awkward if you accidentally, well, skip a certain part that you're not supposed to skip. Although that's kind of difficult to do accidentally, let's put it that way. That's what normally happens. So here I'm actually going to give the boy a barrel real quick. Because this denies all the damage that the boy would have taken in this section here just now. So whenever you are about to get hit by an enemy, like the enemy casts a spell at you, or you have some damage queued on top of your character, what you can do is you can use an item and completely cancel out that damage. I just used the barrel to cancel out the damage, and being able to just run away further quickly again. If I were to use a healing item, if we would get into the healing animation, we would be stuck there and the enemies would likely hit me again. So yeah, there's that. So this is the Fire Gigas. He has like, what, 850 HP? 900? Something along these lines. Either way, chances are I will not be able to one-shot him, because that is actually pretty common that he has just a little bit too much HP. But hey, it actually worked in this time, so that's nice. Also, I saved before the Fire Gigas because sometimes this fight can go wrong. It is pretty much entirely 100% my fault if it does, but it's, well, always possible. Alrighty. What I'm gonna do here is kinda like I did in the previous area. I'm going to use a magic rope before running into the cutscene, means that the cutscene is going to play at the entrance of the area. Also, you might be wondering, wait, don't you need to seal the mana seed of the earth in order to progress the story? And the answer is, nope, you do not. The game never checks for that, so we just don't do it. So, the mana seeds, by the way, are not just for plot advancement and flavor. They actually do give you a real benefit, such as being able to level up the spells to the next highest level, as well as being able to give you a little bit of a boost in damage defense and all these kinds of things. So they're actually pretty useful. But because we are using the overcharge glitch for the most part to just breeze through the game, we don't really need them. In any category where you actually do use spells, you absolutely want to pick up the mana seeds. Alrighty, also you may be wondering, wait, why did you just walk outside? Why did you not just use a magic rope? The magic rope brings you to the entrance that you have entered an area from last. And in this case, if I were to have used a magic rope in the Dwarven village, it would have instead brought me over to the entrance of the Earth Temple, basically back into the Dwarven village, so that unfortunately is not a thing you can do, so we had to walk outside. The mana seeds are useless. Well, they're useful, but in this case we can just go, I'll forget about them. So I have done some Secret of Mana glitchless runs in the past, where I actually completely forgot to seal the mana seed of the wind, because you just ignore it in one player 2 controller, and then I was wondering why my spells were not leveling up past level 2. It was kind of funky. I did that like twice. Alrighty, so we are back in Pandora. Actually, have we been here before? I think we have not been here before. Either way. The short version is, Pandora is a village that has half of its population being completely mute and not responsive in any capacity. What happens here is that the bad guys from the Empire ended up draining their life force, and, well, they are doing some shenanigans here in the Pandora ruins. Including our imaginary friends, friend, Vanna. And by the way, here you may have seen one of the differences, or pretty much the only difference, in the SNES mini version of the game compared to a regular console version. They actually reduced the amount of flashing that is in the game by quite the amount, which makes it a lot more pleasant on the eye. So instead of having a bright white flash all of a sudden that could be even epilepsy inducing, they actually toned that down significantly. Like if you know the Donkey Kong Country 2 Virtual Console release, they removed the flash of the anglerfish level. It's basically a similar concept here, which is way nicer on the eyes. One of the biggest reasons why I actually prefer running the SNES mini version over the regular console that I have run in the past. Also, you may see me switch characters frequently. You can only start running when you have 100% stamina bar at the bottom. So that is kind of important to note, because I cannot initiate another dash towards anything if I do not have 100% stamina bar. So I just switch characters real quick in order to continue dashing with the other characters, since AI control characters can run without using up stamina. It's kind of a superpower they have, in a sense. Alrighty, and we are actually coming up to the next boss here, after we are introduced to the big bad evil guy of the game, the Thanatos here. But he is going to be gone very soon. Either way, we're gonna get thrown in front of a wall. So the wall is ironically the first boss who has evasion rating. So what this means is we have a 40% chance to outright miss, and there's nothing you can do about that, and we just hope that doesn't happen. Plus, if I get a low damage roll, I also don't kill him in one swing. So yeah, fun times, let's see. Okay, first try, nice, that's very lucky. I say very lucky, but it's like a 50-50 shot. Which, well, I mean, you could say it's lucky. Either way, Secret of Mana, often people say that this game has horrible hitboxes. And while I do not disagree, one of the biggest problems is actually the game does not communicate to you that there's actually a chance to miss. In the early stages of the game, if any enemy has evasion, you have about a 40% chance to outright miss with your physical attack. The higher level you get, the lower that miss chance get, but it doesn't reduce by a noticeable amount for the most part. So it's just like, well, too bad, I just missed. And you have no idea whether you were just too far away from the boss, or whether it might have been invulnerable at that point because it has its eye closed, or what exactly happened. Basically, it's just the game doesn't tell you. So yeah, the wall has evasion 40% of the time. Okay, we used to run up to the cannon in order to cannon travel over to Gaia's navel, or navel. Basically back to the Dwarven village, but it turns out it's actually a fair bit faster to just run through the Pandora fields. We technically knew that since a while, because there was a tool-assisted speedrun well before I even started speedrun in the game, and that tool-assisted speedrun is actually really crazy good for its time. And in fact, it's still the fastest tool-assisted speedrun out there, because nobody has made another one. Either way, it's about 15-ish seconds faster to run, even though it feels a lot longer than that. The reason for this is actually pretty simple. Basically, the cannon travel animation just takes such a long time to play out that this is the main reason why it's faster to run. A tool-assisted speedrun also would have been faster to run over to Pandora earlier, just when we visited it, rather than cannon traveling, but that's a much smaller margin of error to not get stuck on all the enemies, and not getting stuck is actually really difficult, because AI control characters don't like cooperating, and even if they do, enemies can just still run in your way and you lose your dash capability. Alrighty, next up we have the Scorpion army. And fun fact, for a long time I never realized as a kid that this was supposed to be a female leader, but after playing or speedrunning this game for like 2 years, I finally noticed. Took me way too long. Either way, here we get to the next boss, that is Kilroy. And by the way, I love the Secret of Mana because it's effectively a boss rush. Like, you get from one boss to the next one to the next one. You don't even need to heal in between normally, because you just get healed after you defeat the boss. So this guy here, kind of like the previous one, he has a 40% chance to dodge our attacks. And he also has enough HP that often, even if we do hit, he will not get one shot. So let's see what happens. Oh, we do get one. Take a kill him. Nice. So far, so lucky. The next boss, on the other hand, I will want to do or make a safety save before I go to Jabberwocky. Because, well, the short version is the enemy's attacks are balanced around you having 3 characters, which means multi-target attacks, the damage is split between all 3 characters. So in this case here, I only have 2, which means, oops, that's not good. Haha, I need to save somewhere else now. The only way to get out of here is using the magic rope. I meant to save in the Dwarven village, but accidentally walked back into the hole. That's slightly uncomfortable. I'll just go over to Nico real quick to save. Because the next boss, he can just basically one-shot me, and there's not a whole lot I might be able to do about that. There's a slight chance I can salvage it, but I definitely do not want to risk that in a marathon run. But yeah, most bosses have some tells, as in what they are going to do, when they are going to do what, etc. For when they are about to cast a spell and such. Jabberwocky, the next boss, does not. He just instantly casts Acid Rain on you, and because he has so much magic power, he will effectively one-shot us. We are both under-leveled and we didn't bother to upgrade our equipment, and we are only 2 characters. He will deal too much damage for us to survive. He can also be one-shot, but once again, 40% chance to miss is pretty huge. Then again, he actually very rarely casts Acid Rain or Acid Storm as a spell, but, well, because there is that possibility, we always want to just stay on the safe side, I suppose. So here's Nico. And what we want to do is we want to stay, and they say we don't want to stay, because then he offers us to be able to save. That's just normal in inns. It's a bit strange on how this works, but we don't need to rest, because we don't use up our magics. So let's go. Alright, in this next section here I'm also using 2 controllers again, because this section here is easier to move around with 2 controllers rather than just 1. Oops, I say as I accidentally walk too far with the sprite. Then I run with both controllers straight up here. And then that's pretty much that. That screen I used to have a bunch of trouble with. Like, about half the time I would get hit by frogs or they would get in my way. But thanks to using 2 controllers at the same time, this makes this significantly easier. Alrighty. By the way, fun fact, some bosses have really strange hitboxes. So, this is why I do not disagree that Secret of Mana has weird hitboxes or bad hitboxes, because this guy, he has his hitbox way below his feet. I do not know why. But I can actually hit him from here, without moving. And this looks like I missed, but trust me, I absolutely hit his hitbox there. It just happens to be evading. So yeah, I have no idea why he has such a weird hitbox, that's just how it works, I suppose. But the other part is, in boss battles, your weapon reach is actually increased by a noticeable amount. Like, you can hit the enemies from way further away than you would necessarily realize. Okie dokie, so we had no trouble with Jabberwocky, but you don't want to see getting into trouble, unless, well, you like speedrunners in peril? I don't know. Either way, we need to steal the mana seed of water again before we can talk to Luca and get out of here. Then the game expects us to talk to Gemma, who gives us another whip orb, but we can't just ignore him. So bye bye. And yes, I'm playing both characters at the same time. Not all the time. So, right now, for people who may not know this game, in the top right corner of the boy's portrait, there's a 1. That indicates that the controller 1 is controlling the boy. When I press the select button, it will switch the 1 over to the sprite, and then I will be briefly controlling the sprite, like right around here. I just switch to the sprite and then switch back to the boy, just to be able to maneuver past the plan. And then I press start on the second controller here, just to be able to move a little bit faster into the next screen, and also interact with this guy here. So you see a 2 now in the top right corner of the sprite's portrait at the bottom of the screen. And this means now the second controller here, which is this one, is controlling the sprite. Also, I just realized that my webcam is upside down. Hang on. That's not how this is supposed to go. Transform. There we go. Now it makes sense. This is my first controller. Sorry, I normally have this on a separate scene in my OBS, so I didn't realize that it was upside down. So here, the reason why I want to, well, control this with the second control is because whoever cannon travels to the upper lands gets the menu, and I can control the things with the other character right afterwards. Okay, so here we have to defeat 3 pebblers, which are these little Sonic guys. And the thing is, they have evasion, which means 40% of the time I'm just going to miss, and there's not much I can do about that. So let's just hope it doesn't happen like it happened just now. And let's see. Optimally, you can hit all 3 of them at the same time with the same charge attack. That is incredibly rare for that to happen. 3 attacks is pretty much the average you are going to get here. Reality is correct now. One of the controllers is still upside down. I mean, I guess. Why is the cam turned now? Because that's how I look at it, and I feel like it makes more sense for people to, well, look at it at this point. So, what I'm doing here is I'm basically just switch dashing through the areas. And I have to go the long way around, because this is effectively the puzzle to this area here. And yes, I meant to have an over-the-shoulder point of view the entire time. Also, I got confused in the previous screen, which actually means that my controller is inverted. Which is confusing if the second controller is inverted, because then it's inverted twice, which means it's back to normal. Ah. Alrighty, so next up is Springbeak. Springbeak only has like 740 HP, which is actually a bunch less than the previous bosses, but he has two things going for him. For one, he also has evasion, so, well, there's that. But also for two, there's a bit of a problem with this guy. Oh, this is bad. I need to... If I don't one-shot him here, I have to cast a spell on him. Oh, we got him, nice. That was lucky. So the short version is, Springbeak, he indicates when he's casting a spell, and I knew he was going to cast Thunderbolt. The sprite does not have enough HP or defense in order to survive the Thunderbolt attack, usually. The boy, I'm not sure whether he would have survived it, so I just casted a spell with the sprite. While you're casting a spell with your characters, they are invulnerable to anything that the enemies throw at them. And so I was just casting basically that spell for safety purposes. And Springbeak, aside from evasion, he also has a shield. So what this means is whenever you try to hit him with a melee weapon, you have to avoid hitting his beak. Because his beak is effectively his shield, and if you hit it, it will just make a high-pitched zing noise, and, well, he just deflects the attack. So you want to really avoid hitting his beak, which is why I moved the sprite with the second controller to the right, which was slightly closer to Springbeak, so he would be facing towards the right side, and that allowed me to attack his backside with the boy. And the setup I did was... will allow me to get an attack in before he gets his first spell attack off. Sometimes he can jump away earlier than that, but that's kind of unusual if that happens. Alrighty, next up we have just a quiet sylph, and also as you may have noticed, kinda like before, we do not need to seal the mana seed of the wind, it's just not necessary, so well, we don't. Here, on the other hand, we need to use Sylph in order to activate this, well, orb, which allows us to open up the passage so we can continue on. This is the main reason why we even need to use spells in this run here. They are just to open up passages and pathways, kind of like fancy keys. Next up, we're going to run into the Mushroom Village. And for once I'm actually going to exchange the weapon with the boy rather than the sprite. This is slightly more efficient because the sprite is currently on the magic menu and he needs to cast another spell very soon. So it makes more sense to change the weapon with the boy. Next up we also have the Mushroom Village, where you're supposed to go talk to the king. He tells you something about a snake in cave over here, but we just clip right through the NPC. The way this works is basically AI control characters can just straight up walk through, well, NPCs. Like, they can just do that, that's a thing they can do. And I manipulate the camera so the AI control characters can actually walk past the enemies. That's the short version. That's not good. Oh well, we should be able to run past. Okay, this is one of the most difficult areas in the entire game to properly maneuver and get through. So I hope I don't get silenced too many times. So what silence does is it actually confuses you and silences you. Means your controls are inverted even in the menu, which means it's actually quite awkward to move around. So here, I'm actually... Oh, I'm getting silenced by that guy? That's unusual. Alright, that's very unusual. Stop. So that you can see what happens when you get silenced. You get absolutely destroyed by these enemies. And the sprite just died. And both the sprite and the boy just got confused. So this is what happens when you get confused. The owls will just hunt you down and absolutely murder you. In some cases, like here, I actually don't have to worry too much about it, But as you could see, getting silenced is really bad for you. Aside from the inverted controls, that's just kind of added on top of it. Because we don't upgrade our equipment, they just deal a ton of damage. They very rarely actually attack you without you being silenced. Sometimes they do, but they don't usually even deal any damage if they do. That's kind of weird. Alrighty, next boss here is the Great Viper. He is actually the last boss who does not have evasion, so as long as I hit him, he will take damage. But he's also the first boss who has over 1000 HP. Okay, that's one hit. Two, perfect. I did not even need to buffer the second one. So that was a pretty awkward run to the Great Viper, but the Great Viper itself went pretty much perfect. So Great Viper can be quite the menace, depending on how it works and reacts, but in this case I had no trouble with it, so that's nice. Yes, I'm manually controlling both characters as long as you see the little number indicator in the top right corner of the portraits at the bottom of the screen. Right now, for example, the AI control characters are just auto-following as long as I'm not using them. So I actually very frequently switch characters. So whenever I press the start button here on the second controller, that is when I will be controlling that character manually. And then I press that again in order to undo that. It's just more efficient because I cannot 100% of the time efficiently run around with just one character. But yeah. Let's go. So next up, we have actually a choice whether we go into the ice country first or whether we go into the desert first. It is a little bit faster to go to the desert first, which is a bit counterintuitive if you know the game, because you would think that, well, don't you have to get Salamando from the ice country and then complete desert entirely? And the answer to that is true, yes, but there's a little bit of a problem with that. And that problem is because you cannot cannon travel directly from the ice country over to the desert unless you have been in the desert first. It's a little bit of a weird thing, but basically the guy in the ice country tells you he does not have enough gunpowder to shoot you over to the desert. If you do not go to the desert first, you have to go via Matango. So effectively the amount of cannon travels you have to do stays the same, regardless of whether you go to the desert first or whether you go to the ice country first. And the path happens to be just a little bit faster going to the desert first. Oops. Alrighty, so here we are in the desert. There's multiple paths away to, well, complete this section, but the quickest one is up, left, down, right. That's it. You can also go up, down, up, right, down, left. Or up, right, up, left, or up, left, up, right. Any of these kind of combinations work. Basically, you need to enter the starting screen you came from a different direction. That's the short version. So, and on the sand ship, our party gets split up. The boy gets sent to the machine room, the sprite gets sent to the kitchen where he eats all the food, and the lady gets sent to the office's, well, the office's room, where he is actually kind of harassing her normally. So you may think, how is this going to work? We kind of skipped getting her. Well, the answer is, we are actually going to get the lady into the party for the first time. She's still not going to be initiated properly per se, as in she will still have a messed up name, and we never get her weapon, the claw. So that's gonna be, well, just how it's going to work. Alrighty, next up, we just need to talk to that guy twice. He is going to cause some commotion, the guards are going to randomly walk around, and we can actually just get outside. Also, in case if you're wondering how I'm moonwalking, I'm holding down the B button and the R button at the same time, which means I'm never changing facing direction. There's absolutely no point or reason why I'm doing this in this section here, aside from, well, fun, I guess. But there is some minor applications where I actually do want to use that in order to run backwards. In these cases I'm just, well, at some point I started doing it for no reason at all, and I'm just continuing here. So, the lady is still going to be level 1, which means she has only 40 HP, absolutely no equipment, and is going to die in one hit. So we want her to we want to keep her alive during this next boss fight, pretty much no matter what, in order to have her gain a lot of levels at once. Alrighty, also I will want to try and select the lady just before I enter the cutscene, but I'm not gonna stop for that, so let's see whether I can press the start button in time. So once again, the start buttons and select buttons are some of the most important ones on your SNES controllers, which is why it's actually really nice to have play this on the SNES Mini, because those start and select buttons actually work properly, which is, well, a bit unusual. So, now I have a third character, which means I actually can use the X menu in order to switch and open up the other character's menu. Also, I want to avoid getting onto this guy's line. Fair enough, good job. So, this is the last boss who actually has less than 1000 HP, which means I was able to one-shot him. Any other boss from here on out, I will need at least 2 hits, because the maximum amount of damage you can deal in a single swing is 999. Minus defense, usually. Alrighty. Also, convenient enough, as soon as the lady joins, we do actually get our, well, only real equipment upgrade in the run. And that is, we upgrade of our beginning equipment up to the, well, equipment right here. So we have tried on multiple occasions skipping these equipment upgrades right here, but it just never really worked out, let's put it that way. It ends up that you take so much more damage, and there's actually a huge difference between you taking enough damage that you get knocked down to the floor, or you just take a little bit of damage and you get knocked back a little bit instead. So, yeah. So we need to equip the lady here with the new equipment. And also equip the other characters with the equipment. Oops. Then we equip also, or well, cast Ice Saber on everybody. Fly over to the Ice Country, and we're off on our way. So the Ice Saber helps us hit enemies, and here's a fun fact. Elemental weapons in this game do not actually deal elemental damage. They are still neutral damage. However, they do have the added effect of, like, engulfing an enemy in flame if you use a fire weapon, or... well, in this case, we're going to turn the enemies into snowmen. Which, by the way, if we have a bit enough time at the end of the run, I might show off a few glitches related to that. So here, basically, the Ice Country is one, if not the most vicious area to run through in the entire run. As much as I love the music as it's calming and really nice, it is such a crazy area to run through, because the wolves have such a quick attack pattern, as well as a huge attack range, and just run way faster than most other enemies, that they are ridiculously difficult to avoid entirely. Like, they are a real menace, let's put it that way. And I think you can clearly see as to why I'm saying that. I'm moving up here a little bit to spawn a wolf, which means one of the wolves in the middle is not going to spawn, sometimes none of the wolves in the middle spawn. In this case, this actually worked out pretty okay. Also here, in order to set up for the next boss, I'm slashing intentionally just once empty, which gives me actually a really nice setup to just get my overcharge attack going. So also, you will see, I open up my menu before I attack. And then, my character is moving around really slowly. What this means is I just retained the overcharge attack, which is not normally something you're supposed to be able to do. But basically the game forgets that it should reset my attack power, and instead it will, well, just give me the same charge attack right away again, rather than having to recharge up and switch up my weapons a second time again and again. Basically, 2 separate glitches work in conjunction to more or less make the perfect speedrun, really. Like, you can both overcharge the attack and then you can retain the overcharged attack. It's kind of silly. So, another little thing. So, Let me explain to you events and sequences. So I talked to this man and skipped the initial event that is normally taking place, where this green guy tells us, hey, could you pay attention to this oven so nobody opens it, and you say yes. So we effectively skipped the first step in this event. So what this means is that the entire sequence of events is messed up. So instead of the green guy disappearing after he walks away, he disappears now. And instead of Salamander appearing now, he is appearing as soon as he's supposed to disappear right here. And vice versa, we are now talking to the Scorpion army here, while they are not here yet, and they are going to spawn as soon as they are supposed to disappear. Basically the entire event sequence is one step behind. And they say bye and, well, just appear. It's weird. But this is exactly what we are going to do in the Fire Palace right now. We are going to mess up the sequence of events for the game, which will allow us to just straight up skip completing the Ice Palace. It's really silly. Alrighty, next up, we go back to the desert. So now we have Salamander, which allows us to actually complete the Fire Palace. Salamander is literally the only reason why we went over here. We do not need to go and grab the Mana Seed from the Ice Palace. So, story would be, the Mana Seed of Fire has been stolen, Santa stole it, no, I'm not making that up, and we are need to retrieve it by going to the Ice Palace. But because we're going to mess up the sequence of events in the Fire Palace in just a moment here, we are just going to ignore part of that storyline. And the way this is going to work is, normally you're supposed to activate one of the passage opening orbs in the basement of the Fire Palace. However, by using some other weird game mechanics quirks, we're actually going to skip that and go straight up to the next area. And the way I'm going to do this is, well, let's put it this way, a bit unusual. I'm going to basically initiate a barrel slide. One for you, and you get a barrel. Then I'm going to run up with the lady and cast heal on everybody. And I'm going to switch to the boy, use the X menu to give the lady also a barrel, because while you're barreled you cannot use items. We hold up and we're just sliding up that ramp. That ramp is supposed to hold you or push you back down quicker than you can run up it. However, because barrels and getting healed at the same time are really funky, you can just straight up run up that ramp if you are barreled and get healed at the same time. And that's exactly what we just did. We skipped the basement orb, which means we are actually one number in the sequence of events behind in the entire area. So even though we're going to activate everything else, well, minus one thing, the game will just kind of forget that we are supposed to, well, do the normal thing. Also here, quick walk through wall, I'm going to move the lady a little bit to the left, go through the thing here, cast the spell of the sprite, activate the rope pull from the side and just walk straight through the wall with the lady, go into this door here, activate this orb here with the sprite twice, because we will want to carry this event over into the next room. Set up the boy to step onto the switch at the correct timing, and now we can just straight up ignore this boss and run straight into the next room, where normally the event is supposed to take place, where the game tells you, hey, the fire seed, the Mana Seed of Fire is missing, but we kind of ignore that. So yeah, shout out to the Japanese runners who actually figured out how to skip the Minotaur fight, because we had no idea that's even a possibility until way late. Also, you may be wondering why I'm walking in a really weird pattern here, and that is because there is these sand trap spinners, or sand spiders, spider legs, I think they're called spider legs, in the desert sand, and they just pop up and hit you if you step into the wrong places. Alrighty, and we have managed to complete the sequence of events necessary to go on to, well, the Empire. So we head over to the South Town, cannon travel, and this is the last time we're going to be traveling by a cannon, so say your goodbye to this lovely little gigantic cannon thing, and, well, we'll just move on. You'd think the story flags would still prevent you from giving its power. Yeah, well, Secret of Mana takes a lot of shortcuts, let's put it this way. Alrighty, next up, we are supposed to talk to Mara in town, which will give us the password to the sewer entrance so we can actually get into the sewers. However, because we are speedrunners, we kind of ignore half of those things that we are supposed to do. For example, I aligned myself here perfectly flush with the wall, which means I can just actually run past that event trigger where that man is supposed to walk up to, well, the entrance of the sewer and just block you from entering. So I just ignored that part as well. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. So those blobs here, you really do not want to get hit by them, because they have a really high chance to inflict you with... I also forgot to do this. Hang on. I'm not done yet. They have a really high chance of inflicting you with the status effect of being frozen, or well, snowman, whatever you want to call it. And being snowman is not a good thing, because you lose like 15 seconds, or use a medical herb, which costs you like, well, 5 seconds. Basically, you lose a bunch of time that you don't want to lose. Did he not? And this room here is one of my nightmares too, until Stinger PA figured out how to properly get through this room without getting hit, which, well, does not always work, unfortunately. So here, I just multiply, select, and run past these guys. Okay, we should still be fine. Please don't take fish with you, we can't have pets here. Alrighty. Now we are through the sewers, which is a really awkward part to run through. Also, do not enter this area here while the boy is being snowmaned, otherwise you soft lock the game. Because here the boy just did a little head nodding animation, and that head nodding animation does not exist in the snowman's animation table, and the game just gets really confused and doesn't do anything anymore. So yeah, you soft lock if you do that. There's more things with snowman that they can't do and shouldn't do, and so weird stuff happens, but I can show that off after the game if we have enough time for that. There's a girl in this game. Well, I mean, you see here the NPCs, there's actually just 2 running around, 4 even. Plenty. Alrighty, so the North Town ruins are more or less Secret of Mana speedrunning overall in a nutshell. Like, I've done a lot of things that I haven't even explained yet, just kind of on the side, because I didn't really have time to explain all these things. Also, I kind of lost track of the story at some point, because you skip like half of it anyways. So, if you'd like to play this game, I recommend it. Maybe be a bit patient, it did not age as well, but just grab a friend or 2 and you should have a lot of fun with it. Either way, Northtown Ruins here are the perfect illustration of how you have a plan for every single room on how to traverse them or how to run through them, but very rarely all of them go well, and so you have to adapt on the fly rather quickly. So in this case, we are actually entering the door to the Northtown Ruins on the left side. Oh, so let's see if I get this, just for fun. I didn't get it. That's okay. Don't worry about that. We entered the door on the left side. We want to walk half a tile to the left in order to be able to run into the door. Then I wait a little bit to run straight up on the right side. Usually the zombies go out of my way, but even if they don't, oops, it's not much of a problem. Then in this room I do not want to run. Like, specifically don't want to run, otherwise the AI control characters will get hit. Here we'd go down right and run straight down. In this next room, same deal. Go down right, run straight down. Then in this next room we go down left and run straight left. This way we should not get hit. I also go a little bit further away from the pillars, intentionally so. Then we walk up here, spawn the blob that is behind this blob in order to be able to run past them after they go initially blop, so I can just run past them. So in this room here, I want to hit this guy before he hits me, because he will otherwise pretty much always hit me. Like, there's no way around that. In this room, down right, straight down. In this room, go to the bottom walls, run straight left, otherwise they will not be able to allow you to pass. Select the second controller before stepping on this switch, and then you will not get hit by the blue slimes as soon as you activate the switch there, which lowers the spikes in the previous section, so we have to backtrack a little bit. So we run straight up left here, and then we can now get past these spikes, hit a switch, open up the door, Switch to the lady, and now I want to run on the top side here, straight to the left. It is actually important that I have to switch to the lady, because if you do that same movement with the boy, the bat will actually hit both the lady and the sprite. That's just... I have no idea why, that's just what happens. Here I want to run as close as possible to the wall on the left, wait until this guy spawns an enemy, so we have one less enemy to deal with in this big room, so the AI control characters do not get, well, distracted as much. Unfortunately, the sprite ended up just barely managing it to get around the corner, and the imp kind of hit him right away. So far, nothing too bad. We lost a little bit of time because of that imp. Then we run straight up here. Actually, slash, I don't even care about hitting that I Spy. I just want to slash, which will give me enough time to avoid getting hit by the I Spy that way around. Then I slash at the beginning of this room here. This will give me the perfect setup to be able to hit the middle center eye just as it opens. Right here. Unfortunately, it got healed, which means I need to wait a little bit until I can hit again. Or try to anyways. I also slash empty here. And the sprite, by the way, died. I kinda want to revive him mainly for marathon safety. Normally I wouldn't bother with menuing that for that, because usually the boss dies afterwards again anyways. Alrighty, and we have successfully run through the first part of Pandora Ruins. So that's kind of an illustration of what's going on in pretty much every single area, except that it's not nearly as easy to explain or obvious for, well, illustration purposes. Alrighty, so another little fun fact, if you walk into this cutscene here when the boy and the sprite are dead, you will softlock the game, because the game actually removes the lady character from your party. And this, by the way, if you play the Super Nintendo version, it's pretty extreme flashing right here when she gets caught. But once again, this is one of the nice things about the SNES mini version, that they removed that intense flashing, made it much nicer. And yeah, honestly, to get to the topic real quick of the Secret of Mana remaster, I like the game. I think it's a good game. But I feel like the frustration, for me personally, mainly comes from the fact that it feels like it could have been so much more. And that's kind of all I'm going to say about that. Let's stay with Secret of Mana for the Super Nintendo here. Alrighty, the next boss here has a very specific way of how we want to deal with him. This is the vampire, and kind of one of the run killers, because if he decides to fly around for a long time, well, we might have huge trouble. But if we get this start here, I have a real good chance of being able to defeat the vampire without having to worry about... Ooh, this is not good. Too early. Without having to worry about too much. Yeah, this is not good. I have to wait here. So basically, I repeatedly cast slow down on him just to lock him into animations. And then I actually position a character in front of him so he can eat that character, so I get more opportunities to try and hit him. Trying to get a different charge attack. This one should work. Alright. So this was not played as well as it should be. I actually missed the window of opportunity for the correct charge attack initially. Vampire played along perfectly. Like, he was really nice just jumping down, because he could just be flying around at the ceiling basically, because he's a vampire, and I could not actually hit him with physical attacks, and I would have to wait until he comes down. So perfect luck, not so good execution, unfortunately. Alrighty, next up we actually do some more shenanigans. So this next skip actually we discovered very late into speedrunning Secret of Mana, even though it should have been absolutely obvious for a long time ago. So, you know, AI control characters can normally walk through NPCs, right? Well, that is not true for when you are in a combat area. Like right now we are in a combat area, our weapons are drawn and out and we can swing with them. Right here we are not in a combat area, because there's no weapons, we are in a town, etc. In a town, AI control characters can walk through NPCs, in a combat area they cannot. However, ghosts can still walk through NPCs in a combat area. So what we're going to do is we remove the lady from, well, life for now. That sounded more morbid than I meant it to. We basically finish off the lady briefly. Then we go into the cutscene here, where we are informed that the Emperor would like to have a banquet with everybody. He realized that he had evil ways and, well, he's just now a good guy or something like that. If you have played Final Fantasy VI, this kind of story thing might sound familiar, except that Secret of Mana was before that. Either way, short version is, he of course just kind of throws all of the rebels into the prison, and well, we kind of want to avoid that fate. So that's why we have a ghost with us. Ghosts are very handy to sneak past guards without them noticing. So what I'm gonna do is, I will use a second character controller here, put the second controller to the right side, the first one to the left. Oops, that's not what I meant to do, I went too far with the second one. And unselect the second controller, and then we make the, well, lady appear again behind the guards, revive her behind the guards, and then we just run up the stairs and completely ignore one of the boss fights and a bunch of cutscenes. So, also, the convenient thing is there is now no enemies in the entire castle area, and we can just run very conveniently, well, wherever we please. And that is going to be towards the next boss fight and the cutscene, so we can actually skip the Metal Mantis that way. So we have to actually go this way around. These plates are all teleporters that just, well, knock us back until we hit this switch here, which, by the way, if you have played the remake and you never played the original, you probably were really confused what you were supposed to do in this section, because it's really not obvious. Alrighty, next we have a boss that is a little bit strange. This is Mech Rider number 2. So basically well, I'm just gonna explain the Mech Rider fight once we hit the next Mech Rider. It's gonna be more easy to do that when we get there. And this really is not something that should have happened. Let's see if I can catch him in time. Nope, I should have just waited. Okay, we go all the way down to the bottom of the arena. So this was entirely my mistake. Well, not entirely. The sprite unfortunately decides to go up a little bit further than he needs to. And kinda messed up the entire pattern for the boss fight. Oh well. Stuff happens. However, now we finally get to fly around with Flammy. Flammy is basically our friend who allows us to fly around on the overworld. And the King Truffle over here will tell us, hey, bring me back to my home and I will give you the Flammy drum as well as explain how where it's supposed to go, etc. But we never have to do that. So another thing that just, well, gets left on the wayside, which means King Truffle is just going to join us on an epic adventure of saving the world. We're not gonna bring him home, sorry. Not until later anyways. Also, what we want to do is we're going to go south-southwest-ish. I think that sounds about right. More southwest? I'm actually horrible at flying. And we are going to go up the lofty mountains where we're actually supposed to go. But we're going to do a thing that we're not supposed to do. So, let's see how this is going to work out. I did not have this on the correct character controller. No, this should work better. Oh, you're not supposed to get hit yet. Sprite needs to be up there. No, Sprite, stay up there. Alright, here. Now this should be fine. How many barrels? 3. I actually kind of want to... for marathon safety, I'm going to keep the barrels. This is a little bit slower to do this, but it's basically for marathon safety. I want to preserve the barrels since they are more useful in many situations. Alright, so I actually want the boy to get hit by the enemy, preferably not petrified, because this actually loses me a bunch of time. But beyond that, this is fine. Because I want to have all the characters at relatively low HP. So, what I'm doing here is I will charge a level 1 charge attack with the Sprite Sword. This is why I killed the Rabbite very early on. And then I unleash the level 1 charge attack, talk to the Sage. Well, he is actually the Sage, spoilers. And, well, we are just jumping through to the wall into his trials, where he is not actually allowing us to get into yet. So we basically skip the entirety of the mid-game, or late mid-game, either way. We don't do the things that we are supposed to, and we're just going straight through the doppelgangers area here. So we skipped effectively the Palace of Darkness, the Gold Tower, Tasnica, as well as the Moon Palace. We do not have 3 of the mana sprites that we're normally supposed to have, and we also don't have all the magics in order to even progress through the next big area. So how are we going to do this? Well, that's gonna get really complicated really quick to explain, let's put it that way. But hey, we first of all have a little Easter egg. Well, I'm not sure it's an Easter egg, but a lot of people don't really know that you can, as a matter of fact, complete this section here by killing off your own characters. So this is actually an intended mechanic. The doppelgangers corresponding to your character disappear as soon as your character gets knocked out. And so I take advantage of that by, well, just killing off my own characters rather than having to deal 999, 800 and another 800 damage for them. So this is an intended mechanic, it's just kind of obscure, because normally when you arrive at the doppelgangers, you have so much defense and equipment that you literally don't take any damage. It's kind of silly. So now I need to go south-southeast. Thankfully my splits actually tell me where I need to go, because I would be lost otherwise, in order to arrive at the desert. And, you know, this is the Ice Palace. We completely skipped this area, which means it's actually still active. Which sounds weird, because I need to land here and just fly away. So, short version is, Ice Palace gives you a shield. If you die in the Ice Palace, you will normally get revived and sent outside the Ice Palace. Just basically revives the boy, get knocked out, and you're back there. Convenient. But normally that shield gets removed after you enter the Ice Country, or for that matter, when you complete the Ice Palace. So you're not supposed to be able to land at the Ice Palace while that shield is still active, and now we basically have that Ice Palace shield. As soon as we die, we will get thrown out into that forest, well, back in front of the Ice Palace, which is convenient because that's also exactly where we need to go afterwards. Let's see whether I can do this. Good, nice. So, I killed off my own characters real quick here. And now I need to revive the sprite first, I believe. Yes, the sprite first. Need to wait a little bit, fly away, revive, and then we go over here. Alright, and now it gets really complicated. What we're gonna do is we are going to use the Frost Forest Nika save point in order to create a corrupted save. So the game never expects you to be able to land at a save point and save immediately without having to do a screen transition first. What this means is the game gets actually really confused as to when you try to load that save file normally. So when I try to load that save file normally, what would happen is the game just goes black and doesn't do anything. It just crashes effectively. And that is because the game has nothing saved in the variable of where you're supposed to land, as in where you're supposed to be. However, conveniently enough, there's a method of how we can tell the game where we are supposed to be. And that is by holding the soft reset combination, start select L and R for like 2 or 3 seconds, rather than just, well, briefly pressing it. We hold it, and that kind of makes the game reset without actually erasing its memory. Meaning, the last area we entered or are in or see on the screen right here, we can save warp to that area. And I'm going to save warp to the beginning cutscene. That beginning cutscene is kind of weird because if you have already completed it, the game will still hide your cactus, as in make them invisible, and afterwards it will, well, teleport you over to Porto's village, because that's not a situation that should ever occur. And so we just do a long soft reset here, load the save file, we are suddenly, well, invisible, and the lady is suddenly visible again. So the reason why this is because, well, for some reason, when your character is invisible from a cutscene, getting a healing animation makes them visible again? Don't ask me why, that's just how it is. Basically, you can make your invisible characters visible again. So, now here, we have one invisible sprite. You can see me walking around with the sprite here, you can't see where he is, but if I open up the menu, you can have an idea where he is. Alrighty, so we enter this area here where we fought the watermelon boss earlier, and there's still this guy here. So this is basically a bugged out cutscene. If I try to interact with him, it will just make him turn around and do weird things. Now the sprite is over here. Weirdly enough, if I press to the left and then press the B button to interact, I will actually interact with that guy even though I'm way far away from him. So basically what we are doing in a speedrun is we are entering in here, into this room here, press to the left and then just spam the interact button to interact with this guy up there just from off screen and walk through the wall. Because with invisible characters, as long as an event or a cutscene is running, you can, as a matter of fact, just walk through the walls. That just works. Oh, I went the wrong way. That is not good. I might die here. Okay. Oops. That's actually not what I meant to do. That is a problem. Let's see. Sprite is currently getting healed. That's actually also not what I wanted to do. So, okay. The sprite is over there. Well, this is awkward. Alright. What I want to do is... This is actually not what I planned at all. I think I got a little bit messed up in my muscle memory after explaining. That's okay. Alright. First of all, I need to move the sprite over there. Then I need to... need to have the sprite cast a spell so we can walk through the wall. Then we go back here. Alrighty, now we're back here. This was a bit more awkward than I, well, wanted it to be. That's alright. Okay, so we need to activate this entire area by stepping onto these switches. Then we use a magic rope, or try to use a magic rope in order to get out of here. By the way, the magic rope always gets used up by the boy, so no matter whether you use it on the sprite or the lady, you always use the magic rope on the boy. So hitting those 3 switches in the previous room activated the boss here, and the game now basically thinks that we already completed the entirety of the Grand Palace. So what we did with going basically backwards through the Grand Palace is we tricked the game into thinking that we completed both the underground section as well as we completed the previous sections with the Grand Palace, where we would normally need all the mana sprites in order to get through. So we completely ignore that part. Alrighty, and here we are. In the process of breaking the game, Yaga seems to have broken the game. Yeah, I mean, usually, very often, people who played this game casually for a long time will probably have experienced that characters just get stuck in the wall here and there. That's just kind of a normal thing that happens. By the way, another thing I have not yet mentioned, I actually tend to position in boss fights characters in front of the boy, just so... attack too early. Just so they will absorb the hits. So the bosses almost always target the character that is closest to them before they attack. Also, what I meant with I attack too early is that bosses have a variable window of invulnerability depending on which boss you're facing. After they cast a spell, they are often invulnerable just before or after they cast that spell for a while. What that means is I need to actually wait very often, a little bit longer than you would expect, until I can actually hit the boss again. Also here, I'm going to do another long soft reset to warp into this room, because this actually skips a few, well, dialogue boxes and we can immediately fight the boss here. which is very convenient. Alrighty, so now in this room here, this is Mech Rider number 3. And he is by far the least of the clever ones of the bunch. So he first casts Wall. Wall reflects spells. So what this means is now he has a buff on himself that reflects all the spells he casts on himself or that is cast on him back to, well, over to us. So his AI works as follows. As soon as he gets hit, he casts Wall on himself for the first time if he does not have Wall. Then, if he does not have a buff, as in Speed Up for example, he will try to cast Speed Up on himself. But because he always reflects the Speed Up off of his own Wall over to us, he never actually ends up buffing himself. So that's all he does. Also, I stand at the very bottom of the arena, so he cannot run me over, because they also try to charge at you and run you over, but if you stand at the very bottom with all 3 characters, they cannot actually run you over. Pretty simple. Alrighty, and with this we have the Sunken Continent that did not rise yet, unless, well, I guess the cutscene kind of disagrees with that. And we are actually now pretty much at the end of the game. So, what you're supposed to do now, after completing the Grand Palace, is you are supposed to, well, go and clear the Pure Lands in order to get the full mana sword power and all these good things. But we kind of have different plans. But before we do this, safety save, before we go anywhere else. Oops, I did not mean to run in here. I don't usually safety save in runs, as you might be able to tell. So, alrighty. As mentioned before, this screen here is kind of special in that there's only 2 enemies at any given point. Because the weird thing is, this little jumpy thing, is basically the reason for that anomaly. As long as that is loaded, no enemy can load. And what I just did is I charged up the sword attack with level 1 with the sprite. I unleashed it and then I called Flammy, which means the sprite then, after Flammy got called, jumped into that weird little yellow thing, which normally lifts you up on the ledge, so you can take a little shortcut. And the game still has that event queued for you lifting you up on the ledge, and well, we just jump to the left. So the game is normally supposed to send you away from the Mana Fortress because you're not supposed to be here yet. But it also kind of forgets about that because I just basically brought that event onto the Mana Fortress. And we're already in here. Nice. Okay, next order of operation is I want to go ahead and run through the walls. So running through the wall here is not much faster, but it actually avoids a lot of enemies that could one-shot us, because this is actually a pretty real problem in this section here. Effectively, enemies hit so hard that the boy sometimes survives 1 hit, but the sprite and the lady will be pretty much one-shot by literally everything that they get hit, because we also did not upgrade our equipment. Oh, I messed that up. That's awkward. Now I need to redo the overcharge. I pressed the wrong button. I needed to run with the sprite instead. There we go. Alright, this is supposed to go a little bit faster than what I just did, but this is okay. So for example, this metal crab, when you play casually, they are pretty much no big deal, no issue. But in this case, they will one-shot both the sprite and the lady. The boy will usually survive one attack, but well, I don't need to risk that either. Alrighty. Next up, we also have the next boss here coming up, Buffy, and he is another one of the run maker breakers, because this guy, well, let's see how he behaves. Hang on. Alright, he flies up, which means I can no longer hit him while he is up there. I'll position a character right under him, just so... Oop, that's the wrong charge attack. Let's see, that's also wrong. I think that works? Yeah, that works. Either way, I positioned a character under him, so he's going to jump it right. Nope, he did not. He would have jumped it right if he actually jumped. I don't know where he's jumping. He does not jump. Come on. So I need to wait until he comes down before I can actually hit him, which is pretty much the biggest problem about this boss fight right here. There's nothing I can do until he jumps down. Also, the Royal Jam, or well, the honey, actually has a weird property where I can heal a character. I missed. Hang on, I cannot talk right now. Lady's going to die unless I cast a spell with her, so... Ah, he actually knocked out pretty much everybody. And the lady is also unconscious, so this might actually be a rip right here. This is why we saved before. Ah, he did not hit me. He might. Stand up! Alright, this is why we saved, because stuff like this where he just jumps onto you and even though the character technically survives, you just get knocked unconscious, happens once in a while. This would have been a rip run, but that's why we save. What I could have technically done is I could have loaded the save warp file into that room, but then there's actually a completely different problem that arises, and that problem is that you end up running into... Oh, I did not release the charge attack. That problem ends up being that you have not activated certain switches in the first part of the Mana Fortress, and the game gets confused as to what it's supposed to do about switches in the second part. The third version is that you will most likely just get a soft lock as well. I did not release the charge attack. On the bright side, we are really far ahead of schedule, so we don't have to worry about this too much, I guess. So, once again, I tried to release the charge attack with the sprite before I call Flammy, and the sprite doesn't have to start moving in order for this to work. I just need to release the button before I open up the menu. Alrighty, here we go. Take two. By the way, the thing is, about Buffy just now, this would have been completely salvageable if I just played a little bit better. What I could have done in theory is I could have positioned my third character out of the way so it would not have gotten hit right there. But that's kind of true for pretty much most of the game. If you just played a little bit better, it's always going to be better, right? Something like that. Alrighty, next we just run through the wall again. Or try to anyways. There it is. Then we let the AI run through the wall. So basically what I'm doing is I give a character a consumable item, then I hit a rope pole, and then you can for some reason just run through the wall for a fair bit longer than you are normally supposed to be able to. Actually, to be fair, you're never supposed to be able to run through the wall, but you get the idea. So yeah, we just do that. Alrighty. Put the sword. Make sure I unselect the second controller, because in the Mana Fortress we try to manipulate all the spawns as much as we can. Alright. Okay, he's casting lightsaber, that's convenient. And don't have to wait. Oops, I forgot to hit that switch. By the way, these switches here are the reason why the second part would be completely messed up. Energy absorb is not going to take place because we activate the rope pole event, which confuses the game and interrupts that spellcast. Alrighty, take two. Buffy. Let's see. I actually made a mistake. I needed to switch weapon with the boy here before I entered. Okay, this could be awkward. It could work out though. Depends on whether he tries to grab the sprite or the lady. Okay. Okay, this is a good setup. Alright. This might be a little bit early. Yeah, this is super early. Okay, it's slightly too early. So what I'm trying to do is I try to lock down the our Buffy here in this case, so I can just get physical attacks in between the slowdowns. I'm literally just delaying his eating animation until I hopefully will be able to defeat him at the end of this here. Nice. So this is an almost perfect Buffy fight, I just did not enter with the correct weapon. So we kind of saw both ends of the spectrum. So yeah, walls are more of a suggestion than anything else indeed. Alrighty, so next up I will want to switch over to the lady since she has the whip equipped, and we kind of want to use the whip on the next section here, running up. So then we jump up, run straight up on the left side past this book. Straight up actually manipulates AI control cactus to behave, usually. Oh, that... Oh, this is good, question mark? It worked. Alrighty, here, these tsunami guys, the blue guys are called tsunami. I want them to split up into 3. Once again, the maximum amount of enemies on the screen is 3, which means none of the enemies on the right side of this area here spawn, which means we completely avoid them. And here we have the red slime. Red slime is, well... he can cost me a lot of time if he decides to cast acid rain a ton. So I just hope he doesn't. That's kind of the entire boss fight. He has a lot of HP. And I need to hit him quite a bunch of time. And kind of like all the bosses, he has evasion, so it's not guaranteed that I hit. But thanks to having leveled up a bunch, we have like a 30% chance to miss rather than the usual 40% before. Oh. I did not do that well at all. I actually misjudged who I was selecting on the controller, and so this might have done a bit worse than it needed to. Alright, but this actually was a really crazy good fight. A single acid rain is really, really good luck. I've only had it ever once where Red Slime casted no acid rains at all. Usually the normal thing he does is he just spams acid rain or acid storm over and over again, and because we have no equipment we are a one-shot. I positioned the sprite and the lady far away from him, because he does always target the character that is furthest away from him and moves towards that one. So he will never actually target the boy with his acid rain spell casts. Also I run up right here, despawning all the enemies in these rooms, then up left, deliberately spawning all the wolves in this room, which means on the left side there's nothing in this room. I scroll the camera further left, run down right into this room, run straight left across this bridge, then wait until this ninja starts casting a spell, run past him, and here we go, wait until this guy hits, or doesn't preferably. Go down right into that room, there's no ninja here, that's awkward, because that means there's more ninjas here, which means we have to wait a little bit, just delay so they start casting spells. Then we run down right into this room, come on. Oh, he spawned, that's not good. He's not the worst enemy to spawn, but he's pretty annoying. Rip. Actually, I should probably heal her. So ghosts are really awkward to have in your party when you try to maneuver areas, because they are completely different than AI control characters, plus they cannot run. So I wanted to get to this point before I revive her, just to make sure no enemies spawn on my way. So, then we need to run down right into here, down right, and this should despawn all enemies in this section. Switch to the sprite because he has the sword, so we can get through here. Make sure that we don't get clashed by these guys. They usually cast a spell after initially swinging, and then we just walk into the door and we are through. Alright, that's one of the most dangerous areas to run through. It actually was quite the step up for when we decided to skip buying the last set of armor and finally optimize the mana fortress so that we don't get killed everywhere. But yeah, I think that whack in the face on the lady was kind of a perfect illustration, as in how ridiculous it is to run through these areas with very few levels and pretty much no equipment. Alrighty, so by the way, if you save warp into this cutscene here, it will actually soft lock after you get these cutscenes where you just see Thanatos standing in the center of the room and he doesn't do anything. So at this point we are locked into the final boss fight, and if I lose, I'm gonna die. Well, that means I have to reset. But previously I actually would have had the chance to sleep warp into areas if I died on the way here, although I would have had to battle Dreadslam twice to continue. Alrighty. However, this is the Dark Lich. Enjoy the music. He has 6666 HP. He starts with a physical spell and then always alternates to magic spells, or he dives on the ground. But I want to see him either never dive on the ground or dive on the ground immediately. Those are the two things I want to see. Preferably... So I position the lady relatively close to him, so she gets targeted by his attacks. I also switch the boy over to a sword, because I will need that after the boss fight. I only hit him once so far. Alright, we might be able to get a headbang here. Let's see. Alright. Sometimes he can escape from this, I do not know why. But this is what we originally called a headbang glitch, but technically I think it's just a very, very short AI loop. So what the Dark Lich is trying to do here, he's trying to move up or down because he cannot move left or right. And he tries to get closer towards us in order to clutch his hands, so he will be able to attack us. That attack, by the way, is a one-shot, and it's a literal instant death if we do get hit by it. And there's no way to avoid it if he decides to attack instead. But I'm effectively standing just exactly in the center, where neither his left nor his right hand actually can reach me. So that allows me to just give this very interesting, intense, headbanging AI loop. Alrighty, also I actually enter a full screen menu right here, just to skip the level up text, which would normally take quite a while. I basically changed the border just for fun, there's no reason why I would do this. Oh, I forgot to practice the visual glitch thing. I'm not gonna risk it though. Sorry. So there's a weird visual glitch that you can do after the mana beast flies in on you, and just before it comes to the platform, where you if you open up a full screen menu, the mana beast is completely messed up in how it looks. And I like showing that off, but I actually haven't practiced it recently, and it's really easy to die during this boss fight because, well, kind of like everything else, literally anything is going to kill me if I get hit by it. So I'm just gonna play it safe and go for the kill instead. So here, I do another little mini skip. So normally when you activate the mana sword for the first time, there's this grand cutscene of about 24 seconds that is really, really fancy, and usually the mana sword actually runs out of time if you haven't leveled up Dryad during that cutscene. So what I did is I activated cutscene and then stepped onto the switch. And now we have the mana sword in the hand of the boy. So you might be thinking, oh, of course, you need the mana sword in order to defeat the mana beast. That is actually not true. You do not need the mana sword in order to defeat the mana beast. The reason why a lot of people think so is because the mana beast has just an insane amount of defense, with 450 defense, which means you need to deal at least 451 damage in one swing to deal any damage to the mana beast at all. However, the reason why we still use the mana swords, despite us dealing max damage anyways, even with the spear, is because the mana sword never misses. And that's really the main reason as to why we even do this. Also, you cannot normally switch around the mana sword in this fight, except if you cast a spell, as in an elemental spell on it. And that's exactly what I just did. Cast an elemental spell onto the mana beast, and now the mana sword is permanent instead of running out of time eventually. However, worth noting that it actually does not gain the buff from its secondary effect when you leveled up other weapons. So that's a bit of a weird thing to note, I suppose. So there's a possibility of a one cycle. I still haven't practiced this properly. I probably should do that sometime. But let's see how this is going to go. I don't think this is gonna hit. But let's see how this is gonna work. Yeah, I casted that too late there. So basically, oh no, I forgot to replenish the sprite's MP. Well, rip that idea. So what I tried to do there is I tried to lock the mana beast into place before it casts wall, so I would get in a bunch of hits before it would be able to, well, sit here. Because after a certain amount of time, it will just fly away again, and I have to wait an entire cycle until I can hit it again. But because I was a dummy and forgot to replenish the sprite's MP, we're not gonna get a one cycle. So enjoy the music for a little bit longer, because it's really good. If you can hear it anyways over me blubbering all the time, as well as, well, the SNES hardware just cutting out. Also, I'm casting Remedy just at a timing where I will not take any damage. The timing is very, very generous, but you just generally start casting as soon as the mana beast flies in. Should I do it? Let's just try, shall we? I might regret this. I didn't actually not manage to open up the menu in time. Oh well. Could be still okay. I positioned the lady in the middle, so in case the mana beast decides to cast Lucent Beam, it's going to hit her. But with this, we have defeated the mana beast. And timing stops as soon as basically the whiteout starts happening and our party fully gathers. And that is going to be right around now. Alright, now Secret of Mana. One player, two controllers. A little bit of a hiccup here and there, but nothing too time consuming, I would think. And well, I do believe we actually have quite a bit of time until the next run is supposed to start, so I was told I should entertain you everybody. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Also, a little fun fact. At the very end of the game, when you see the end screen, with the sprites just looking into the night sky at the stars and the moon phase and the stars you see in the night sky are actually randomized. So it can be a full moon, it can be a 2/3 moon, or it can be a crescent moon. The moon phase effectively depends on the checksum on your save files. I have absolutely no idea how to even predict that. So it's effectively random. So what do you think? Is it gonna be a crescent moon, a 2/3 of a moon, or a full moon? Feel free to let me know. And well, I'm gonna take a very quick break of about a minute or two, and then we're going to be showing off a few weird quirks of the game, because there's a lot of glitches about this game that I don't get to show off because there's only so many you can cram into a single speedrun. Well, so many that are actually useful anyways. And yes, we're going to get a little glitch, let's try this again. A little glitch exhibition while we wait. So why did you pick up one player, two controller? The reason is actually pretty simple. Basically, when I learned about speedrunning, my immediate thought was Secret of Mana, because it was basically my favorite childhood game. And I just wanted to see whether somebody was really good at it. And at the time there was not really that many people. And when I finally got back around to speedrunning, like about a few years later, when I started speedrunning myself, I started originally with I Wanna Be the Guy Gaiden, just accidentally got into speedrunning that basically, and then decided, you know what, maybe I can speedrun this game. And so I decided to look up who might be running it. And there was a certain well, let's say, little controversy. At that point, basically the speedrunning hub or Speed Demos archive, the general rule was that if you use multiple controllers, it's considered to be a co-op run. And using just one controller was a bit weird to me at the time. But then I saw somebody who was just doing one-player, two-controller runs anyways, and that certain somebody is called Luigi Meister SE, one of pretty much the original runner of one-player, two-controller. And that's kind of when I started watching him, and I realized and recognized a few things where people were just using glitches, but it was not really optimized. So I decided to investigate certain things, and among the first things I found was I learned about how the wrong warp works in this game here with the Frost Forest Nika, and played around with it a bit. I figured out that if I save warp into the beginning cutscene, I suddenly have invisible characters. And then I started playing around with what I can do with these invisible characters. I figured out that we can get into the Sage's doppelgangers early, and the problem was, if I do this, we wouldn't have all the spells or the elementals in order to actually get to, well, through the Grand Palace. You need at least 7 of the 8 elemental spells in order to be able to make it through the Grand Palace the normal way. So I started testing and figuring out stuff whether this was somehow possible in another capacity on how to possibly avoid doing certain things. And at some point I figured out how you can do the backwards Grand Palace, and well, that kind of meant that we had like 20 or 30 minutes of time save. Short while after, we managed to skip the Pure Lands entirely. We never had to enter these ones anymore, which is unfortunate. I like the area a lot. And that's kind of how I started speedrunning. I initially just did a playthrough with a ton of save states on an emulator, just to see how these glitches work, and because I was curious to investigate them myself. And at some point I got better and better, and here we are. And the two controllers just seemed the natural choice, because if you play this game with only one controller, you can do pretty much all the same glitches with one exception. But it's a lot more awkward and cumbersome because you have to rely on AI control characters. This is why the current one-player, one-controller record with glitches still actually uses spells, which is objectively the slower method, but nobody aside from Crow really felt like speedrunning this game with one controller, because using two controls is just so much nicer. I started route finding like a madman. I mean, I was just doing a little bit of research here and there what could be optimized. It's kind of like, I did this with some other games like I Wanna Be the Boshi as well. I never really intended to speedrun that game myself, I was just kinda curious how it could be optimized. So because I played it a lot, I eventually got good enough to do some runs myself. I never was particularly high level in that game, but even nowadays you will still find a bunch of strategies in I Wanna Be the Boshi that I've developed. Because it's fun. I'm actually incredibly inconsistent as a player. The only reason why I found certain things in Secret of Mana is because I just do everything a little bit different every single time I run this game. Like, I have a general idea on how and what to do, but I'm really bad at sticking to plans. What the categories are there for Secret of Mana? So there's the True Any percent, also sometimes called Magic percent, where you do a arbitrary script execution to call the credits under 10 minutes. Then there is one player, two controller with multi-tap, which is basically a worse version of one player, two controller without multi-tap, because most people don't have a multi-tap. You can't even do that on the SNES Mini. Basically, there's also a skip that you would do with multi-tap that is just annoying, because you have a 1 in 16 chance to spawn a chest and you have to get that like 1.5 hours into the run, so nobody wants to run that. Then there is one player, one controller, which Crow is the record holder. By the way, we get a 2/3 of a moon, and we will start our glitch exhibition soon. And then there's a category with glitchless, And then there's some challenge runs I did, but that's not real categories with just solo characters. Alrighty, let's do a little bit of a glitch exhibition. I think I only need one controller for the most part for this. But I always like sitting here at the end screen for a while, but what we can also do is I can actually do a long soft reset. And what happens if I save warp into that last cutscene right there? Well, I use the Frosty Forest warp and we are here. So it turns out that sprite here that we saw in the ending cutscene is kind of a little bit of a imposter, I guess. And we are basically in a different version of this area here. And weirdly enough, if you step into certain areas, you just walk over and suddenly you are outside the water palace. So let's put it this way, weird stuff tends to happen if you save warp into certain cutscenes. Also, weird stuff tends to happen if you, well, activate certain animations and events that you're not necessarily supposed to. A good example of this is where for a long time I did not even know that this glitch existed, despite having speedrun the game for quite a while. But there is actually a way to... well, actually, I'm just gonna demonstrate it, and then I'll explain it afterwards. So what I need to do is I need to get back into the sewers in order to get my cactus frozen. Turn into a snowman, basically. So I want to do this over here in the next room after this one, because it's gonna be easier. So I'm also going to freeze them real quick so I can get them into position more easily. Alright, don't hit them again. Okay, so now I'm just holding upright with the boy here. Switch character as soon as he gets frozen, because they have a really high chance to freeze a character whenever they attack. Use the medical herb slightly after the number settles on the attack there. And then I switch back to the boy and immediately hold upright again. And suddenly, we are missing a character from our team. So, you can play the entire game with just one character if you want to, which is part of my solo character challenges that I tend to do. And, well, this is what we call the snowman abduction. The short version is, snowmen are not supposed to be able to move around, and so when you, let's say, push against an NPC, and snowmen also do not have like a pushing animation. For example, if I... where are you? Here you go. If I push this guy around, you see the lady just doing that shoving animation. A snowman does not have a shoving animation, so if I push up right or down left into a corner against an enemy while I'm a snowman, or the animation of a snowman, the game just gets really confused and removes the character from your party. It's actually kinda weird how that can happen. And, well, yeah, it's weird. It actually took us a long time to track down some footage of somebody getting a character snowman abducted. I went over to Nico Video to try and find a casual player. By the voice of it was a lady. She unfortunately had that happen to her, where one of the characters just straight up disappeared. That wasn't quite enough footage for us to figure out how it works and how it happened. But at some point, one of the runners called... oh my goodness. He was my best competitor for a while. Let me actually figure this out real quick here, sorry. I want to give proper credit here. His name was Incroyable BB, there we go. Sorry for forgetting the name. But Incroyable BB had that happen to him during a run, and finally we had actually some good footage and figured out how that works. So, there is certain places in this game where I enter this room, I go back outside, everything is normal, right? However, this is actually kind of a special type of door. This is an exit and return door, as I like to call it. I'm not sure what the technical term is, but the short version is, when I enter here, the game remembers where I entered this room from last time, and as soon as I leave the doorway through this tile here, it will put me back into this map at this spot. So what this means is, if I actually use a magic rope in here, And then I try to walk out the door. I get back to this place over here where I ended up just, well, being earlier. So basically the game gets really confused about where it is supposed to put me, and I'm just effectively soft-locked into this room. And it has no idea what to do with me. Because the last time I entered this room was from right here, because I used the magic rope to get from this room into this room. And yeah. Exactly, Less Honor, that's how you spell it. And so that stuff happens. Alrighty, let's show off some more things, because we have some more time, I think. Yes, about 10 more minutes. This should be fine. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold Start, Select L and R for as long reset. And now, here's a weird thing. Basically, I was in control of the lady just now, and if you do a long reset where you hold Start, Select L and R for like a few seconds, the game gets really confused because you're in control of the lady still according to the game's memory, but you're supposed to control the boy at the very beginning of the game. And as you might be able to tell already, the cutscenes, they're supposed to move from side to side and just around in order for them to just get somewhere, really. However, the way the game does that is actually it hides the boy from the camera and just moves him up or down the screen. That's how it actually does screen scrolling. It's pretty clever, pretty simple. But because the game is not actually in control of the boy, or more specifically, the boy is not being controlled by a controller here, it does not have the permission to scroll the screen, which is why the screen does not scroll. AI-controlled characters cannot scroll the screen, even if the game takes control of these itself. And so, as a weird result, this boy here you see on the bridge is actually an NPC that is just playing out the animation. This is not technically the character we are controlling here. So what happens now is at the bottom, as soon as I go through these cutscene here, you will see the boy briefly standing at the bottom of the screen, because that is where he gets unhidden, as in appears in the area. Once again, during this cutscene here, normally your AI control characters are just hidden until that point right there. And now, I am not in control of the boy. So what happens if I'm not in control of the boy? Well, I cannot really walk around. The boy tries to get to the default position of where the character normally spawns, which is just a little tile left to him. And I cannot really do anything because I haven't picked up the sword yet. If I press the B button, I actually interact with the sword that is just south of here. And weird stuff tends to happen when you do this. So the camera tries to scroll to where the boy is actually supposed to stand, next to the sword, so it centers the camera around him. But because, well, that never happens, well, we never actually get to see the camera center, and it just continuously scrolls like this forever and ever and ever and ever. Alright. It's weird. Okay, last thing we are gonna do. For this I need an invisible character again. So, very often you see various things in games where people manage to open up the debug menu or get into the debug room via some weird tricks and glitches. And thanks to Moppleton's Secret of Mana editor, I actually figured out that there is a little trigger that is still in the game where you can actually achieve that. It's a little bit complicated on how I have to do this, but you will see that in just a moment. So what I need to do is I need an invisible character in order to be able to walk through walls. Once I have that, I will be able to use that in order to reach the switch or the trigger that is normally completely unreachable. But this takes about a minute until I get back there. Also, I will actually need two controllers for that one now that I think about it. So, a lot of people are aware of you can actually glitch back into Podos village after you get banished from it. And I will need to do this briefly as well. And this is also part of the trick on how we got past the mushroom in the Mushroom Kingdom earlier as well. Loading this Frosty Forest into this cutscene here, and we are here. So, we now have two invisible characters. If I heal one of them, that the other invisible characters will, well, be no longer invisible, and they will just kind of reappear. So, this is what I did earlier in the speedrun. If I heal them, they will reappear. Don't ask me why invisible characters are made visible again. It's probably just something about the animation. Either way, the sprite is still invisible, and that's good, because we need at least one invisible character. Also, right now I'm controlling the sprite. You can't really see where I am. I'm here, and I'm just pressing down, and I can walk straight through that guy because I'm invisible. And the AI control characters can always walk through NPCs, unless they have their weapons drawn. Alright, however, what AI control characters cannot do is they cannot activate triggers. Excuse me. Yeah, that's true as well. AI control characters cannot activate triggers, and invisible characters cannot activate triggers. So in order to go to the next screen, I actually have to control a visible character for this. So, and now we're just going to go briefly back into the rabbit forest here, just make my way back. Sorry rabbits, no romping today. And, alrighty. Just going to go back real quick here. Rump. So I'm making my way back to basically the first screen. Okay. So, alrighty. To give you a brief illustration, over here, past these flowers, there is this switch here, that trigger, where if you originally come from this bridge and walk up at the very beginning of the game, the boy looks to the right and says, I need something in order to whack away these bushes so I can get back home. And this trigger is actually still here. You can see my character briefly stuttering whenever I walk over it. However, since it is deactivated, the game doesn't do anything with it. And the game actually has a copy of that thing on the left side there, in this screen here as well. But it's actually technically a separate trigger and a separate screen. So what I want to do is I want a rabbit to drop a chest. Rabbits actually, I think, have like a 1 in 8 chance to drop a chest rather than the usual 1 in 16. So they have a significantly higher rate for chest drop, and I will need one in order to walk through the wall here. Let's see. Can I get a chest, please? No chest. Hopefully this is not gonna take too long. Come on, buddy. As you can see, we can oh, there we go. We can scroll the screen a fair bit further to the side, but we're actually not going to be able to get through there unless we do something like this. So, the sprite is actually stuck behind the trees there. Okay, sprite is back. No, I need a second controller real quick. So what I'm gonna do is I will open up this chest here. So I will move with this character towards the left side with the second controller. The lady's just walking into the wall. As soon as I open up the chest, she will be able to walk through the wall, thanks to, well, some off-screen shenanigans. So, and now we are past the trigger where we cannot normally go. Oh. Oh, I forgot about this. That was a mistake to... Oh, I just made a mistake. So I actually need 2 invisible characters to make this work. How much time do we have? Okay, I probably do not have enough time to do this now, because I probably should give it over to the next person. But the short version is, if I were to reach that trigger, I would be able to get into the debug room. And there's not a whole lot to see, it's just a black room with a few things standing around. But yeah, I do not want to take up too much time here. And I'm sure I can show that off sometime else as well, if you'd like to see it. But I needed to have 2 invisible characters, because otherwise the boy actually got stuck there behind the scene trigger, as in the screen transition. And I would not have been able to bring him close enough to the trigger there, which is why you need 2 invisible characters. I just kinda derped about that. That's okay. Things happen. I didn't really prepare this glitch exhibition, so I didn't practice anything. I was just asked to maybe fill out a little bit of time. So, well, I hope you enjoyed that anyway. So everybody, thank you so much for watching, for listening, for lurking. I hope you enjoy the next run, which is going to be Kirby Superstar by Sony Rough. And let me tell you, I really like that game. It's really good. And I'm sure Sony is going to do a good job at playing it. So I think that's it from me. If I'm told that we're going to switch over, we will be switching over, and I hope you continue enjoying your stay at the SNES Super Stars. Good night then, thank you very much.